Hi, and welcome along to the North Lodge Cottage Garden. I'm Gardener Ben. Well, March has finally arrived. It's roared in like a lion with a change to the weather, and it will tiptoe out at the end of the month very much like a lamb. But it's not too early to start direct sowing some seeds, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of direct sowing today in this raised bed that's in front of me. Now, if you can, I was really quite crafty with these. I actually specifically built these beds around these. I bought quite a lot of these large plastic cloches which fit completely and utterly beautifully on the top of these borders. There's actually 3 of these in a line along the edge of the vegetable and cutting and trial garden here, and each of these planters were designed around each of these cloches. They fit absolutely perfectly, and this is the perfect way to start a very early sowing of many of your vegetable crops outside. These cloches also not only force a little bit of heat into the soil and get your crops going a little bit early, and obviously protect them from the inclement weather, but as far as we're concerned as well, here in the North Lodge Cottage Garden, where we're absolutely deluged with birds, is it stops your tiny little seedlings being dug up and flicked out of the planter. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to sow a couple of sowings of different things. I'm going to do some organic beetroot from Fro Seeds and some organic baby carrots, once again from Fro Seeds as well. If you are interested in ordering sustainable, organic and really beautifully ethically sourced and packaged seeds, UK customers can use code BEN10 at Fro Seeds and get 10% off all the way through 2023. Now, there's only 2 of us in this household, so I'm actually going to be sowing 1 line of each of these in this border here. Before I do that, I'm going to do a little tip for you. I've given this a really good forking with a hand fork just to break it up, to make sure that things like root vegetables like beetroot and carrots need a nice fine tilth, a nice fine growing media to get their roots down into the soil so they don't become all lumpy and bumpy. So I've given this a really good forking over. And what I'm going to do now is, just using my hand as a fin, I'm going to create 2 trenches. It doesn't need to be particularly deep. We're looking between 4 and 6 millimeters deep, but we're not going to be too precious about that. And I'm just simply going to draw 2 lines in the soil as a way of gauging where I'm going to sow. So there's one, I'm just going to move that back again. Second one, I'm just going to bring my hands through the soil again, double that back a little bit, and then I'm going to suggest you do something that a lot of people don't do. I'm going to suggest you water this first. One of the largest problems with watering seeds that you're direct sowing, that if you're too heavy with your watering, or it rains particularly heavy once you've sown, they can actually be washed out all over the place. Now, it's not obviously a particularly bad thing if your lines aren't particularly straight, but what we want to do is we want to make sure that we know what are carrots, and we know what are beetroot, and we know what are any weed seeds that may or may not come up in, and we do that by identifying the fact they're either in or out of the line. It helps us thin the seedlings at a later point. So taking a decent watering can, this one is from Hawes, I'm just going to give this a really good drench, and that means that when I come to sow the seeds, we can absolutely guarantee that they're in really good contact with the soil, and I don't have to pile more soil on top of them in just a moment. So give them a really good drench. Beautiful. And then we're going to take our seeds and we're going to direct sow them. I'm going to do the carrots at the back, and then I'm going to do the beetroot at the front. Tear the packet open. Always make sure you give the packet a good flick to knock the seeds down right into the bottom. Rubbish in my pocket. Right, we're going to literally pop these into the palm of our hands, and we're going to sow these along the back trench that I've just produced and watered in. And we'll do the beetroot at the front. If you're not particularly experienced with this, you can actually try doing this over a plate or a bucket, anything that you can actually practice. So if you're not like me and you're actually not particularly experienced, and obviously I've been doing this for nearly 2 decades, I'm really quite experienced when it comes to really thinly sowing seeds out of the palm of my hand, like I showed you a couple of weeks ago with the aubergines and the tomato seeds that we were sowing from Fro Seeds. But what we want to do is just knock the seeds into the palm of your hand. I say, if you are inexperienced, you can do this over a piece of either a plate or a bit of kitchen towel. Just give yourself some practice. Cup your hand ever so slightly together, forming a crease down through the line there, and then just tap them through. So if you have got excess seeds, put them down to one side, and literally all you want to do is working yourself towards you very lightly. What we want to avoid is sowing these too deep, too densely, and having to prick them out. Carrots especially moving carrots about and disturbing them once they're in leaf will actually attract carrot root fly. So what you want to do is you want to sow these really, really finely, paying very close attention, moving slowly, just tapping your hand as you go to avoid having to thin them out. And I know these are a baby carrot, obviously these aren't going to get particularly big, but what we don't want to do is have to thin them out, which are going to bring carrot root fly to the party and bring all sorts of problems. So I'm just going to move over and get rid of the very last of the seed, very, very gently, filling any gaps. But I say you can practice doing this technique over a piece of kitchen towel or a plate if you're not as experienced as I am. So that's the carrots in, and what we want to do then is take the organic beetroot, again from Fro Seeds, and we're going to sow those along the front. Now personally I can't abide beetroot, but Mark really likes it, as do my parents, so I always make sure I grow a few bits here. What I haven't done is I haven't put those carrots safely away. I've only sowed a tiny proportion of those, and I will be doing another sowing of those in several weeks. So I'm going to fold that packet down tightly. I'm going to pop that back into its original packet and fold that down and store that later. Again, make sure that you're not keeping your seeds in the house. You really want to be kept in a outbuilding somewhere that's frost free, but you don't want to be keeping them in the house and making them really hot. Again, flick the packet, make sure that you're knocking all of those seeds down into the bottom of the packet before you tear it open. And once again, and these are a really nice sized seed for you to practice on if you're not particularly experienced. So you can do this over a plate or a piece of kitchen towel if you're not experienced enough. Just to get your technique right. Again, we're going to open up the packet and we're going to knock those into the palm of our hand, and then all we're going to do is again slightly knock our hands. Sorry, I'm falling off of my kneeling pad here. There we go. And what we want to do is we just want to sow these very, very sparsely. Again, the seed is large enough, if you have to pick them up and move them about, you can, because they're a really large seed. Just lightly tap your hand and allow them to fall into the trench. Again, a very small sowing for us here, because obviously there's only two of us. Going to need one or two more just to finish off that line. One or two more going in now. Now, as we say, we've already watered these, so we don't need to give them any more water. But what we do need to do now is, once we've put the rest of that contents of that packet of beetroot, again, I've only sowed a small proportion of what's in there. There's only two of us in the house, so not a lot of beetroot are going to be eaten. That's more than we need. Pop all of those bits back in that packet and fold those up safely and store those for another time. We're then going to take some fresh compost and we're just going to literally dust this area with some fresh soil. Now, organic and very low peat compost, unfortunately, is actually really very, very coarse in its particle size. So what you want to do is you want to take it with your compost scoop and just pop it into a fairly coarse sieve. And we just want to cover up these seeds now with a couple of millimeters of soil. You can see all the large lumps being, we'll throw those out and get a little bit more, all those large lumps being taken out. And unfortunately, that's one of the drawbacks of a peat or a low peat compost. It is slightly on the coarse side. So all we're doing now is just covering up those seeds with a nice small layer of compost. Again, we'll discard those bits there. I'm just going to dust that edge off down just to tidy it up. And that is now ready for a light tamping down. So use the back of your hand, just a little squish. And all that does is guarantee that those seeds are in really good contact with the soil underneath. A little bit of a tidy down, and we are ready then to cover it up with our cloche. Obviously I need to label this. Well, I'll do that now. Actually, the labels are here, so I actually use these. I know these seem really extravagant, but I've actually made loads of, well, I've made hundreds of these out of old bits of gravel board and offcuts of timber, mainly from the fencing that's actually above my head, the privacy screen that we've got above my head. I've just painted them green, and every single year I go around and I collect them up and I paint them again green just to give them a new weatherproofing, paint over them, and then I use a heavy marker and I just write on there. So we're going to write beetroot on there. I'll do the carrot in just a moment, so we'll get those labelled. That can go in the front there. Job done. And the cloche goes on the top. Don't forget, if you're using this technique as I am, to actually pin them down Otherwise, if the wind gets up, they will blow away, and then the weather gets in there and spoils everything. So give them a pin down and turn those vents to close for now. And in around 14 days or so, we should have some germination. Anyway, don't forget that code BEN10 gets you 10% off of all UK orders at Throw Seeds for the whole of 2023. I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll see you all again soon. Take care now. Bye bye.